We're doing it live.
We are doing it live. We
So,
do not usually start early. We usually start a little, a couple minutes late.
Yeah, that's true. But we've had the pleasure of having Culture Casino feed or redirect his audience, his chat, over at the end of his Friday post flight, and it's been very helpful to having a nice active chat here. So we figured we better be on when that wraps up, so people actually have something playing. Because I can tell you, if nothing was playing, people would close out and move on.
We don't know that. I mean, we're pretty cool people. We're fun. Like people might just come over and wait to see our show too.
I'll tell you who is probably going to be shocked by this is Tina. She's the one who is probably going to be like, what, we started early? That's definitely not like them.
No, we should. Oh, wow. Yeah, it just redirected straight over to here too.
Welcome, Culture Casino viewers.
Culture Casino and their viewers just joined. What's that say? I don't even see it all. Show me the reds. Oh, never mind. It went away.
Yeah, it's yeah, so if any so we're gonna have a fun show tonight. I think we got some fun topics. We got Bill Willingham. I don't think, did you see this story, or was this more of a comic book things than you're into, which is Bill Willingham?
I saw you posted on it in a Discord that we happen to both frequent, and I was like, I don't know what Fables is. Is that like I thought at first it was Fable the video game. I'm like, ooh man, Fable must have failed real hard.
No, the video game you might know, Wolf Among Us. That Telltale
I do know
game
Wolf Among Us. I know
was based on the comic book series that this is.
Okay. That game was cool. I liked that game.
Apparently, that is one of the root causes of him going public domain. So that'll be fun.
What, the video game?
Yep, because he didn't get paid a dime for that when he's supposed to be.
Oh.
Wow. So we'll talk. Well, yeah. So we're going to talk about Bill Willingham with Fables. For people who enjoy Sporky News Channel, we had a very lively discussion on the Wednesday show over there about the WGA strike, what is and isn't a scab. This is in reference to Drew Barrymore deciding to actually start her show again for the fall television season without WGA writers, so that she's not breaking any of the rules. And so, let's see. Robert, the YouTube redirect is rough. Actually got lost, not even joking. I had to go back and reload to get the redirect. Well, I appreciate you and the rest of the Culture Raid that's showing up for going through the efforts when YouTube doesn't make it easy to actually get anywhere. They definitely don't. They're not doing the small creators any favors.
But hey, if that redirect ain't working, you can always hit the like and subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications.
That's right. So Bobby, Bobby, who's been listening to us, did you hear about actors that are affected by the strike are now applying for unemployment? So yeah, California is on the verge of changing their unemployment system to allow striking writers and actors to get unemployment, which is, I think, a very bad idea.
But everybody in California is going to be striking after that. Everybody. Like, you think this is bad.
Oh, another one got tangled in the weaves. We got here eventually. Hello. Thank you for coming. What would you say that name is, Slender?
I would say that is Yeknomino.
Yeknomino. Cool. Let us know if we pronounced it good or bad or indifferent. But thanks again to everybody from the Culture Stream coming over and hopefully giving our show a shot. Like Slender said, if you want to avoid the weave of getting over here, you can hit the like button, you can subscribe, you can get those notifications, and you should hopefully be able to get there. And Tina did show up. Yep, and Tina's here. Sorry for starting early, Tina. We were trying to make sure we were online in time for the Culture Raid, which has shown up, which is great.
So which he was asking too. I was in his chat, and twice he's like, He's like, Slender, are you guys doing a show tonight? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm like, we're doing a show. Little Chad just hasn't set it up yet.
Look, all right. So here's what happened. Today is one of the first days in a long time that it's been kind of cool outside, and you know this because you live near me, Slender. It's actually
I wore a sweater today.
Yeah. So to celebrate that, it was the first time I broke out the slow cooker, and I made a nice day-long preparation. I'm Italian descent. Did the slow cooked meatballs and spaghetti for my son because it's his favorite dinner. And so that's a lot of preparation, and it's a good, you take your time with that meal. We had some nice rosemary olive oil bread that we baked up. It was delicious. And when you take that kind of meal, you got to take your time and enjoy it. So I got a little delayed with setting up streams.
Did you spend all day making the sauce?
I slow cook it, yeah. So I prep the meatballs around noon, throw them in the slow cooker, and we eat around 7.
So I have friends on both extremes for that one. We have you, who takes all day making the sauce, as a lot of people will say, is
that's the only way to do it, yeah,
traditional way. Then we have my other Italian friend who's like, dude, it doesn't taste any better than the shit out of the can. Just add a pinch of sugar and use that.
That's some bullshit. So what that guy probably does is he doesn't put anything into the sauce. Like, does he put meat and all that kind of stuff in?
I'm sure he does. I've had his spaghetti. It's pretty good.
So when you slow cook
Spaghetti's spaghetti to me. It all tastes the same.
When you slow cook the sauce, giving time for like the meat ingredients, some, if you have meatballs, sausage, like the vegetables like mushrooms, all that stuff can enhance the flavor. And the longer you slow cook it, I think the better. To a certain degree, you don't want to spend 2-3 days doing it, but about 6-7 hours in a slow cooker. Best way to do it, because either that or you have to get, if you're a real Italian family, you get one of those giant pots that you put the sauce in that you can slow cook it on very low heat for an entire day. So
that's what I do. That's generally what I do. Yeah. I will put that stuff in at about lunch in the big old stock pot on one of the lower settings on the range, and I'll just let it run until it's time for dinner.
That's a good plan. See, that's where I come down. That's how my mom did it. That's how she taught us. If she were still around, unfortunately she isn't, but if she were, that's how she'd be doing it for my son, so that he could learn too. Luckily, we learned enough so that we can do that now too. And it's a really, but trust me, during the summer when it's like 90 to 100 degrees with the humidity and all that, you are not doing that all day long. It's just too much. Let's see, what's good. Great way to grate parm is using a cheapo peeler, big thin flakes of stinky cheese that melts into the flavor. Yep. Adding cheese, all sorts of stuff to flavor it up. I'm a fan of the fresh Parmesan, not necessarily like the Kraft, like sawdusty, processed, Parmesan cheese, Parmesan Romano blend. Now I think that's the only one they sell.
So, yeah, I am a fan of. Well, I don't like tomato chunks in my spaghetti. I like the spaghetti sauce to be all like tomato liquid, but I like obviously having sausage in there, mushrooms, kielbasa. You can put some chunks of kielbasa in there. Like I like a hearty meat sauce, but just no tomato chunks. I don't like tomato chunks. They taste weird. The wife likes to add the rotel sometimes, and I'm like, ugh. You've ruined the texture.
Nope. Yeah, I'm not a tomato. I like sauce form. I just don't like the real tomatoes. It's the sliminess of actual like chunks of tomatoes. Yeah, I agree. No. I like it in sauce. I like ketchup. I like a lot of the tomato products. I just full on tomatoes have a sliminess that I'm not a fan of.
I don't like tomato skin. I don't want tomato. I don't want to be able to taste it. It needs to be pureed,
Yep. All right. So which of our two main topics would you like to go with first? Strike or Bill Willingham giving the giant FU to DC Comics?
How about I throw you a curveball and I said I want to talk about neither of those two topics because I heard something earlier today that was of interest to me. and that
Curveball
was
away.
that Square Enix stock has lost $2 billion in value since the release of Final Fantasy 16.
I mean,
2 billion.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. I mean, market capitalization can be really, let's see, Square Enix Holdings, which, by the way, they trade as EI4FF, meaning Final Fantasy. Oh, Jesus. That is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their stock.
Pull it up. Show it on screen.
I'm about to share.
We're about to see a Disney-like line.
Oh, it's even more fun. Look at that.
Oof.
So you can see
hurts.
August, right by the middle August, we're trading just under 42, and now we're down to 33.70. Look at that drastic line.
Now, here's the thing. The reason I wanted to discuss it, and we can be relatively brief with this, is I don't think it has anything to do with Final Fantasy 16, other than the fact that they did an exclusive PS5 release. And it's like, and they even said like we have great sales on the PS5, and it's like, great, then all 15 of the people who own one probably bought your fucking game. That's 100% sales, but that's not a profit.
Well, all right. So Final Fantasy 16 released June 22nd, which would have been right here. So right before it came out, you can see where
they
it
probably
peaked.
had a nice spike from pre-orders.
Yep, and then
the
actual release date, it's already down, and then it continues. Basically, the trend line just continues. It kind of stays up. I mean, that's a small trading range of about $1, and then something around August 3rd just tanked it. Well, so sometimes CNBC will put there you go. Was this is what you were talking about? Square Enix sheds nearly $2 billion in value since 16, which is true. I don't know what
I just don't think it has anything to do with Final Fantasy 16. I think it has to do with a track record over the last probably 2-3 years of just garbage games. Like, look at Forspoken. I know that was not
well,
core Square Enix Studios.
You want to talk about their bomb?
Studios, but
I think right here, they did terrible with that Marvel Avengers flop. Marvel Avengers, was a terrible bomb of a game.
So was Forspoken. They've been incorporating a lot of. I know a lot of people go back and forth on this, but they've a lot of woke propaganda. Okay, like I'll tell you right now, Forspoken, a woman occupies every position of power.
Well, they did it with the Avengers game too. They made Kamala Khan the main character.
All the women are ugly. All
right, so I'm going to say this. This is maybe I'm Square Enix, when they switched to the 3D renders, I've always thought the female models were not great. This goes back, I've talked about before my movie theater management days. I was there when the Final Fantasy Spirits Within movie came out.
Yeah.
That Square Enix was super proud of.
I thought it was a fun movie.
But the female character models have never been hot. Like when they went to that design.
Did you ever watch Final Fantasy VII Advent Children?
No, I didn't see that one.
Well, there you go. You missed when they'd actually figured it out. And they had it all figured out, and then apparently it became unpopular to make hot chicks in their games. So
there you go. I'm guessing this is in reference to the Marvel's Avengers flop. 100 million spent, probably didn't even see 35 million returned.
That might have been Forspoken. I'm not sure.
That might have been Forspoken because Marvel, I think, failed on a higher level than that. I think Marvel bombed even harder. They spent, I'm sure
Forspoken reportedly cost more than $100 million to make. A fantasy AAA video game with $100 million plus budget, with a release date set for fall of 2022. The game's release window before its second delay. Yeah, Forspoken was an absolute fucking disaster. The only reason I'm super familiar with the story of Forspoken is because Internet Historian did a Video Games Explained on the entire story of Forspoken, and I was like, wow, that game was crap.
So that explains. So right here, when you're reading a stock chart, 52-week high. So these all happened within fairly short order. This was in June 20th, so right before Final Fantasy 16. They hit a high of $49.10. And their 52-week low was just on the 14th at $32.72. And
that's a huge drop for a stock price too.
Yes, so and you can see, so this right here, if you want to figure out what's called market capitalization, which is how much a company is actually worth on paper from stock value, what you have to do is take this shares out and multiply it by the value of the stock. And that tells you what the market capitalization is. So, which is 4,403 millions or $4.4 billion. So you can see right here, I'm going to do some math. They lost $16.38 a share, which is roughly 33% of their value.
Yeah, and this is an interesting thing, right? And I think it's Robert Kijek. People were not talking about it. I'm thinking that's part of the problem. And like with this whole the controversy that went on over the last couple of weeks with Az and his rant about Starfield, it's like maybe there really is no such thing as bad press. And if we want games like Starfield not to work, not to happen, the best answer is just apathy. Just, I bought the game, this game sucks, I get a refund on the game, and I never say another thing again.
I don't say my name correctly. I'm just going to call him Robert. Yeah, so this looks like, look at that year-to-date change. 21%. So it's actually not that, like we just talked about. It's down 33% from its high this year, but overall for the year-to-date, it's only down 21% because it had gone up ahead of the Final Fantasy 16 release. But it's still, that's roughly $2 billion that they just have shaved off the value of their company on paper, which matters right here. So
and nobody's buying PS5s. Like,
I'm not, and I'm the target market. I've got a PS4 that I'm still.
I have had a PS1, a PS2, a PS3, and a PS4. I haven't bought a PS5. There aren't any games on there that drew me in, and I was like, oh, well, I mean, it'll come to other consoles or to PC after a while. I'll just wait until it's not a PS5 exclusive anymore.
I know you are a PC Master Race participant.
For the most part. I mean, I was PlayStation all the way until Force Unleashed just handled like hammered dog shit on that console. And then I made the switch over to Xbox for a long time. And then I realized that it's just so much easier to have them on my PC. It's just better.
Looking for a new tower with a 4090.
Nice.
Slender does help friends and family build their equipment at their expense.
I do.
But he will help.
If you buy the parts, I can put it together.
I know that you, your daughter's rig is still running pretty solid, right? That's your newest.
Mine.
That's your newest build, if I remember. Yep.
Yeah, it's the newest machine in the house.
Square Enix is also, it's a Japanese company. Generally, Japanese companies have seemed more insulated from some of those things, but Square is an exception. I think Square has adopted a lot of the Western
They've
sensibilities.
westernized their business model in a lot of ways.
And which is weird because Final Fantasy, as far as I know, is still the only thing printing money for that business. None of their other franchises or games have made a dent in the last 5 years. Can you think of anything else?
They did pretty good with Octopath Traveler.
Was that? All right, I haven't even heard of that one.
Octopath Traveler, the only way I can describe it is a spiritual successor to one of their lesser-known games from back in the day called Saga Frontier. Saga Frontier had a bit of a cult following. I thought it was a really cool game. Basically, you pick a character at the beginning, and you play through that character's story, but throughout that story, you will run into the other characters that you could have picked in the game. And once you beat it, you can go back and you can play through with a different character to get their part of the story. Like all the stories are interwoven, but you can play from any of the characters' perspectives. And they did something similar with Octopath Traveler. Yep. And recently Octopath Traveler 2 just came out. And I think those did pretty well.
I just looked it up.
Was good too, but Suikoden isn't Square Enix. I think that's Konami.
Yeah, it looks like Octopath Traveler 2 came out in February of this year.
Yeah. And that probably did pretty well.
And then Robert's saying, oh, Suikoden?
There's 5 Suikodens. They were really popular. First
the only thing
good.
5
the
that
second one was even better. Third one was okay, and then I didn't really play 4 or 5 that much.
I guess Persona 5 was the only 5 thing that you've been telling me I need to play.
Persona 5 was amazing, and I'm late to the game on the Personas. I've never played one. I've seen a couple, but the first one I sat down and played was Persona 5, and it was I mean, it's one of the best games I've played in over a decade.
So let's see. I'm just looking back about over the last 5 years. It looks like the normal trading range for Square Enix is right in this kind of, it's actually usually ranging $40 to $50. So going back to, like the last time we hit a really big low, and everyone I'm sure is shocked that it happened around March of 2020. God knows what could have been happening around March of 2020 that had everybody spooked. But it was just
that would have raised their stock prices.
Well, if you look immediately after it started rising, because everybody started buying video games while they were at home, and it rises above its average trading zone by August of 2020 to around $54 a share, and then it's trading in that, it's going up and down with a few peaks and valleys, but it's still in that 40 to 50 range, with the lows being around $39. Lows being around, this one was $35. So the fact that now we're hitting 33, that's something we haven't actually seen since around COVID starting. That's not a good sign.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I am a huge fan of Square, but ever since they merged with Enix, I don't think they make as good of games anymore. And just to give you an idea, this is how, going through my Steam library, I have Chrono Trigger. I have Final Fantasy IV, the 3D remake. I have Final Fantasy IV, the After Years. I have Final Fantasy VI. I have Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster. I have Final Fantasy VII. I have Final Fantasy VIII. I have Final Fantasy XIV Online. Hell, one of my favorite games back in the day was a weird experimental title they made called Bushido Blade, which was the only fighting game where you could one-hit kill your enemy because it was realistic damage.
Nice. Awesome One has an interesting point that Square Enix was bought by NFT millionaires that wanted to push the NFT into all the games, and all the Japanese influence was nearly zero. NFT millionaires was probably a bad thing, and yes, laid off for about 2.5 months. Yeah, everybody. Our business was shut down for about a month at that time. It was not a good time, and that's why video games and other stocks like that started actually having a pop. because they were selling their back library. Robert has a point that cough. I've seen on the web where people can find the old games and emulators that can plug into streaming software. Not that I know anything about that. Yeah, I might have a MAME set up myself that can run emulated devices. And then, yes, Vertical Horizon. Square Enix did do that trash Kamala Harris Con Miss Marvel Avengers game that lost hundreds of millions of dollars. They also had trash models for the characters. It was really bad. It, like, everything they could have screwed up with that game, they did screw up. It was terrible. I would have bought the new Final Fantasy, but I've no desire to be a PS5 with such bad reviews on the hardware. And that's a point Slender was making, that it was probably, even though the deal might have seemed good at the time, locking
you're
that
releasing
down.
into the single smallest market in video games right now, probably.
Well, it is. Well, no, they are the largest market for like the newest generation.
PS5.
Well, here's where, all right, PS5 is the highest selling of the new generation of hardware, but they are still pale to the install base of PS4, Nintendo Switch, or PC. PC is the number one. Like, if you're running a Final Fantasy, you should be releasing a PC. That's where it should be. And I would, even though this sounds counterintuitive, Switch. People who love the type of game like Final Fantasy's JRPGs, they're going to have Switches. And Switch consoles are prolific. And if he's not being sued, the Soldier Boy console is superior. Didn't he just slap a sticker on like a Nintendo Switch? I don't even remember which thing he ripped off.
It was bad. Whatever it was bad.
He was repackaging another system and just putting like a sticker on it.
But the last there are games that will encourage me to buy a console. I bought a Nintendo Switch specifically so that I could play
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Like, Breath of the Wild was the only reason I bought a Nintendo Switch. The only reason I bought a PlayStation 4 was for the God of War, which I thought was really good. I never played the second one because Fat Thor just kind of turned me off of the whole thing.
I'll tell you what, another one was Spider-Man was awesome on the PlayStation 4.
I guess if you're a Spider-Man fan, those games are probably awesome. They look like a lot of fun. I don't know. I'm not a Spider-Man fan. Just not my guy.
Yeah. It reminded me of when you got, I think it was PlayStation 2, when they put out the Spider-Man, the motion picture like video game, and it was the first time they actually had web slinging and you were able to really do that kind of stuff in a Spider-Man game, and how much fun it was.
I bet that shit was fun.
Maybe Soldier should have bought those cheap Sega ROM boxes sold at Walgreens and put his name on them. That actually, I love they have those little ROM boxes that'll play like Super Nintendo, Sega cartridges, and and it even has the ports for the original controls, and they work because I still have a lot of the old cartridges. I think there's a lot of us who didn't get rid of them, and I can slap those cartridges in. Sometimes you got to clean them off a little bit, but they'll work, and you can play those games.
And so will the controllers. And you know what never
They're
happened
built like
to
tanks.
what never happened to one of my old Nintendo, Super Nintendo, or Sega controllers?
Battery died.
Stick drift. Stick drift never happened on those.
Well, once they added analog sticks, the first PlayStation controls that had analog sticks, I definitely broke some of those. Like they got broken. You'd have to buy a new controller.
Dude, I have a toolkit specifically so that I can recalibrate the analog sticks on my controllers.
Well, you're gonna just get some of those scuffed things and really go hardcore. I didn't know you were that crazy about it.
Well, when I was in the Navy, I was a calibration technician. I know how to calibrate things. And with the stick drift, all you have to do is open the controller up and readjust the fucking screws on the inside that are attached to the controller. They're little they're varistors, like variable resistors, basically. And you can tune it back to 0. So, but yeah, and nowadays you get a controller usually within it doesn't even take a year before you start getting stick drift.
Well, it could. I don't know. I just end up using the batteries on these controls go bad now too because they're all rechargeable and you can't change them. So, I mean, I was I am gonna tell yeah I those Atari controls name in the family didn't flail each other with them. I still have Atari 20. I have an Atari 2600. Still works. Beautiful console. It's got that nice wood grain. It looks great. And the controls still work, and you still just knock somebody with them. Although I'll tell you what, the ones that were sensitive that were Atari were the paddle controls. Did you ever have those, Slender, where you actually had the like circular paddle to like move the thing left and right with the trigger on the side?
I remember having one, but I was so little at the time.
Yeah. Let's see. Bride is Slender. My A button stopped working. How come you didn't fix that, Slender?
I can't fix if there's like a solder issue. I mean I could, but that's a lot of work.
Let's see. My Xbox battery rarely lasted longer an hour. Yeah. The controls that started with the rechargeable batteries, and then you'd have to buy multiple packs or just get the cords and plug them in because they just wouldn't last long enough. The first generation of rechargeable controls, I think it was PS4 that was the first one where I actually felt like the control battery lasted a good long time.
Yeah,
without me having
your
to like
best
plug it
bet
in.
with those is generally to get one of those little stands where instead of batteries in the controller, you get like the little battery pack, and then you set it on the stand, and it charges when you're not using it. Like that's just the easiest way to go about it.
Robert gets it. My dad stopped buying those. He got pissed at replacing the paddles, so just got rid of the game. So,
yeah, I think something similar happened with me.
Oh, but that was a good one. I forget which like that was for Pong and some of those other like breakout games that you would be playing.
But yeah, and even looking at Square's track record of late, Square Enix, I guess, like Final Fantasy 13. I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know anyone who thinks that game was all that good. And I had a lot of problems with it. Lightning was not a compelling character. She was annoying. It wasn't really a game. Like I would spend 10 minutes playing the game and then 45 minutes to an hour watching cinematics. And then it would drop me in a hallway, and it'd be like, you will now walk from this end of the hallway to that end of the hallway. Oh, you're going to have to fight some bad guys on the way. All right, now that you've spent the last 10 minutes walking from one end of a hallway to another and fighting a couple of bad guys, we're going to play another 2 hours of cinematics for you. And it's like, why didn't you just make a fucking movie, man? So that game was crap. Final Fantasy 14 was an absolute bomb until they rebuilt the whole thing. So, I mean, credit where it's due. Final Fantasy 15 also kind of boring. Like I don't even remember the names of the characters in Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, someone says I enjoyed the lady lead game because of the bunny lady. You should just watch some anime. The bunny
lady was in Final Fantasy 12.
Oh, was she fine? Okay, there you go. So, bunny girls are an icon for anime, so you can just get them there if you want.
But that's the thing, right? I don't know any of the characters. I've played every Final Fantasy except for 16. I've played every single one. And now the ones that were only available in Japan and eventually came over to the States, they didn't quite resonate with me as much. But like, I don't know any of the characters' names from Final Fantasy 15 anymore. I can't remember them, despite the fact that it was the most recent one that I've played. Final Fantasy 13, other than Lightning, and the only reason I remember Lightning is because there's a lot of fucking, like, she's the main character. I don't remember any other character's name. Same with 12. I don't remember any of the characters' names. But, like, 7, I know every freaking character.
Oh, I was about to say.
4, every character. Final Fantasy 6, every character. Final Fantasy 8, every character. Final Fantasy 9, I know most of the characters.
So Vertical Horizon's agreeing with you. They're basically just interactive movies now.
Yeah.
to speak to your just lengthy cutscenes going on.
Like I'd like to play a game when I buy a game.
I think everybody, at least our age, the first. I mean, you probably have a little more experience, but the first time I noticed was Final Fantasy VII, when you got that big 4-disc pack for your PlayStation,
and it was awesome.
And you were playing. Those are the characters. I mean, I know Cloud, I know Tifa, I know the Res, I know Seven, and that for me. After that, I was like, oh, okay, and then I guess I missed a lot of Final Fantasies because from there it just nothing stuck with me.
Well, 8, you had Squall, you had Quistis, you had Cypher was the bad guy, Renoa, she was one of the characters. Like that's where I thought 8 was pretty good, and it gave me the happy ending that 7 robbed me of. And then 15. And here's the thing, right? 15 tried to do what 7 did, but they just sucked at it. Like 15 was the only thing I will say about 15 was the final battle was pretty awesome. Like the final battle was amazing, but like the characters were just not compelling. It was like a boy band went on vacation.
So
and we were just in it was a documentary about following them around and watching them on their fucking vacation.
Robert brings up another series that has gotten bad with age, which is Mass Effect. Mass Effect hugely popular. Mass Effect 3 had a weird ending. I think Mass Effect 3 was the ending where you had to decide whether to destroy the universe or not.
Are you a Reaper or are you a human or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I know Mass Effect, was it Andromeda? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, and that's the one where we're gonna have a party on the ship and all have sex.
Yeah, and that was the one with the terrible facial models on the.
I don't know. I have Mass Effect in my Steam library. I played it a little. It never got its hooks in me, and I never finished it.
All right, so Final Fantasy 15.
I'm not big on FPSs though, so yeah,
it
was all about food and driving. And the food part was more compelling to me than anything else. I loved the food system.
So
where, like every time you set up camp, you would cook food for bonuses.
So it wasn't as fun as like Food Wars or something like that, where you had
no, I wouldn't want it to be like Food Wars because if you'll recall, all 4 of the main characters were dudes in that game. So I don't want clothes getting knocked off by how delicious the food was.
So there was no meat in that one.
The only girl in the game was the one that you're supposed to be betrothed to or whatever. You're going to get married to her. And the first time you see her for real in the game, she gets killed. Like they try to Sephiroth her, but the problem was like Eris was in my party all the way up until the point that Sephiroth kills her. In Final Fantasy 15, I barely knew this bitch. You expect me to feel bad that this guy just killed her? I don't care.
Oh, I think Square needs to kind of come back to what they did. I guess there's the argument about whether you want to try to grow your audience. This is true for a lot of brands too, and I think this is a mistake where they think they need to do daring, bold things to grow their audience and not worry about the people that loved what they did before. Yeah.
But Square used to be the game company that was pushing the envelope in a lot of ways, in a lot of different ways, and they were doing it right.
I mean, I know they were the first time I had a multiple disc game on PlayStation, and that blew my mind.
You had a multiple disc game on PlayStation, and you said you didn't really play 8, so you don't know this. I believe you might have been wrong about this, but I think Final Fantasy VII came with 3 discs, and Final Fantasy 8 came with 4. I think. But now the thing that 8 did, once again, it kind of pushed the bounds, right? And they might not have been the first, but they're the first I remember, was they did integrated cinematics. Where like you would still be in control of your character and the cinematic would start happening. But you were still controlling your character while that was going on.
The first time I remember playing a game with that was the first God of War. And maybe that's just the way they did it was more dramatic. But I remember the demo for God of War. You know, back when you got the demo discs that they would just like put out
Yeah,
at
I was
GameStop or
right.
whatever.
Memory didn't fail me. Awesome One has 7 in hand, 3 discs.
Here you go, 3 discs.
I was pretty sure that 7 was 3 and 8 was 4.
Well, that worked. I mean, it's still more discs. But
I'm trying
God
to
of
remember
War,
if God of War had integrated cinematics or not, though.
well, that was, remember, God of War had the main thing where you had to like just, it was the QuickTime event.
A QuickTime event is not an integrated cinematic, though.
I mean, I feel like it sort of is.
It's not. It's not.
I mean, it's basically like playing a cinematic, though.
It is, but you're thinking of it from the gameplay perspective and not the tech perspective. Technologically, if you when you were playing games back then, if you remember, it'd cut to black, and then a cinematic would start playing, and your character would be more highly rendered. Everything would look different because of that, right? With Final Fantasy VIII, the cinematic would start playing. It wouldn't cut to black before the cinematic started playing. Your character would still be in the cinematic, but the cinematic was actually happening. You were getting a cinematic sequence. Yeah. So, like, you didn't have that momentary break of immersion when it shifted from gameplay to cinematic.
Yeah, I wish they had worked on making that something that was still actually here into today's games.
Yeah, instead of, what's even better than integrated cinematics? Just cinematics. Fuck gameplay.
Yep.
But no, I mean, it's just that they're losing sight of what makes their games so good in the first place. And with the Final Fantasy games, it's always been like the characters. But in these last handful of games, it's like, well, we're going to have one character, and that's what we're going to focus on. And we're not really going to talk about the supporting cast very much. Like, I knew every character in Final Fantasy VI. I knew Locke. I knew what Locke's history was. I knew what got him to where he is today. I knew his motivations. I knew Edgar and Sabin and what their history was and why Sabin left and Edgar stayed. It all came down to deciding who was king based on a coin flip. And he used a fucking cheap coin to do it because he knew that Sabin didn't want to be king. Like, I know their stories. I know what drives them. And I care. I give a shit about these characters. But then, like the boy band, our kingdom was destroyed. Let's all jump in the car and go camping and fucking fight monsters every once in a while. This will be awesome. Yeah, brah. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about any of these guys. I just don't fucking care. And I never get any history as to their motivations. Every once in a while, there'd be like a little side story where it's like, the main character would get together with one of the other characters who rides in the car. And they'd be like, you remember that time when we wanted to take that picture? Yeah, man, that was awesome, wasn't it? That was great. I'm sure glad that I'm your friend, man. I'll do anything for you. I'm like, dude, just end this cinematic or kiss, because I'm done with both of you right now.
Well, I guess, I mean, I missed all those ones, so I don't even have anything to add for that.
They're terrible. They've lost their ability to do good, solid character development and world building.
Speaking of people who've lost their ability to do things, I think that's a good time to segue to the WGA, because I think we had some thoughts about that the other day on the Sporking's Wednesday show.
Yeah, we got pretty passionate on both sides, I think.
Yeah, because Sporking is solidly union man, which if it's 1940, I get it. But so he feels very strongly about people crossing picket lines being scabs, never wanting to, ever work with them. I think it's being overblown about what Drew Barrymore is actually doing. I think the WGA is trying to get more publicity for their own, I guess, PR. Because what she's doing is she's coming back. She's not going to have writers on her show. So she's going to do her talk show without any writers. As far as I can tell from the union rules, she's allowed to do that, because there's a lot of other talk shows that have been doing that this entire time. The View, uh, Kelly and Ryan, whatever his name is, what used to be Regis and Kathy Lee, which has evolved into Kelly Ripa's show basically now. These daytime talk shows have been on this entire strike, and they are allowed to do it because they don't have WGA writers. They're just apparently having people on and talking. So I don't get it. And this is the point that we were talking about. Her other employees still need to work. There's a lot of people who work on that show who aren't writers who would be impacted.
And that's part of it too, right? Like they discussed this on Culture Stream a little before we started, and I got to thinking about it, right? And it's like you could probably lump the directors in, but aside from the directors, the writers, and the actors, nobody on that set is making that kind of money, getting that kind of benefit. Like, and there's a lot of other people working on those sets that are out of work because the writers and the actors decided that they were going on strike, and they decided at the worst possible time.
So let's also,
we're literally coming off a pandemic, right? A lot of people were out of work for a good portion of that, and they're still in recovery. You know this, I know this. Like financial stability is gone. And then because these assholes who make more money than anyone else on set decided that they didn't like the deal, they fucked over everyone else on that set.
And here's another thing that they're not thinking of. Movie theaters are not in a good state. They were just starting to get...
Movie theaters aren't in a good state. Studios aren't in a good state. And that's largely in part due to the writers.
Yeah, so movie theaters need a steady stream of content to be able to stay open. They're a business that needs movies every week so that people like the regular moviegoers who come out every week will come out. They are the backbone
I'll go watch
of your money.
Krull. You don't need new content.
Yeah, I got Slender to go see Krull a few weeks ago, and he enjoyed it aside from the fancy pants. But
no, I didn't say that I had a problem with the fancy pants. I liked the fancy pants. Since he had I always knew where he was on screen because I just had to look for the fancy pants.
That's
like,
true.
oh, there's the protagonist with his fancy pants.
Yeah, so movie theaters are going to get crushed by this, where if they don't have content coming out weekly, and this is where they've been feeding it this year, is because they've had hits, but they've also had new stuff every week. Like in the last couple of weeks, Equalizer 3 came out and made around $40 million. Then last week, The Nun 2 came out, made about $35 million. And those aren't huge hits, but those are consistent draws, which is what makes like you as a theater, you need that, and especially going into fall. And
I feel you, awesome one. I feel you.
Yeah. So the only reason I've been going is because I got the Movie Pass. When Movie Pass came back, I signed up for it because I had used it before. So I pay $10 a month, and I get effectively enough credits to see about 4 movies if I go at the right times on weeknights. So that's not a bad deal. So I do that. So this is the thing where I think we talked about it on Wednesday, Slender, but the WGA got offered everything they wanted except one thing, which was so the Writers Guild is trying to get a lot of different parts of their deal, but the main thing that is the sticking point is they want to insist that if there's any show with more than like 5 episodes being filmed, it has a minimum what's called writers' room. So I think they want 12 writers on staff. If they're, it's something stupid where you are required to hire a minimum number of writers.
It is a completely absurd thing. It is absolutely absurd. I'm sorry. That is, nobody thinks you're going to get that. It's not going to happen. I agree with Vertical Horizons. Hollywood isn't the only game in town anymore. And
we got foreign content. I mean, Korean stuff is propping up Netflix right now on the streaming side. So, and I know,
dude, I just went back and my daughter, she loves the spooky stuff. She likes the scary stuff. I got her and my oldest son to sit down and watch Train to Busan with me the other day.
That movie is fantastic.
Because I was like, this movie's so good. You guys got to see this movie. And they watched it with me, and they both loved it. So then they wanted to watch Train to Busan too. And I'm like, I don't know where we can watch that, actually.
Yeah, so Hollywood isn't the only game in town. Angel Studios. Did you see Angel Studios is putting out an anime that they've been working on? Well,
Angel Studios?
They're the ones who did Sound of Freedom.
Okay, they're making an anime.
So it's actually based on Old Testament, but they actually did it like anime style. It looks a little like Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, Gabriel and the Guardians?
Yes.
Oh my God, they do look like anime.
They did it on purpose. They decided to do a good style. Well, it remains to be seen, but it looks like they actually committed to trying to maintain a certain level of production value. Let's see. Even if the WGA gets what it wants, AI and management will just slowly dissolve any writers over time. Which is what. Here's the thing. It's going to happen. You're going to have to adapt and do it. I think what will eventually occur is that human writers will use AI to be more prolific. I mean, we're already seeing Taylor Sheridan is basically making every show Paramount Plus has. He's doing all the Yellowstone shows. He's doing the Tulsa King show. He did Mayor of Kingstown. He did Special Ops Linus, which is now going to be a franchise, and they're going to make shows for that. He is quite prolific. Give somebody like him AI where once he's trained on it, it can become a force multiplier for him to do even more shows. That he's going to still get paid. What's going to happen is these terrible writers, like She-Hulk writers, are not going to get paid, and they will get fired.
And those are the only people who are really going to be threatened by AI, are the people who they can write okay. Like, they can write a decent story. They can put together a decent script. Like, this isn't going to... An AI can't write at the level of the best writers. It just can't. An AI, what it can do is it can analyze trends, it can follow those trends, and it can match those trends. It's never going to get out in front of the trend. The new stuff is still going to be coming from the best writers.
I think Robert has a good point. A lot of people don't like the writers. There's no one who wants to hear their complaints when everyone is doing so bad. Also, the last 7 years of movies sucked. Yeah,
and this is all true. And like, you
by the way,
expect
Slender,
anyone to pity you? You get offered $11,000 a fucking week.
What was the weekly salary they were being offered?
It was going to start at like $8,500 a week, not a month, a week. And then over the next couple of years, it would rise X number of percent and basically top out at $11,000 a week with a guaranteed minimum 9 weeks.
This is another thing that I think we're going to run into. The UAW just went on strike. They strategically planned this strike to affect all three major automakers at the same time for the first time. Mm-hmm. And they did it with their key plants. They did the Ford plant that makes the Mavericks and the Broncos. They did, I think, the GM plant that makes like the light SUVs, the small SUVs for GM, and whatever the name of what used to be Chrysler, like Stellantis or some weird foreign European name. Same deal where they make their ones. And they are demanding, the CEO of Ford came out and he's just like, look, we're not crazy here. But what they're asking for would make the average salary of an auto worker $330,000 a year. And we can't afford that. And I'm like, that's probably and they want
more than I make.
Here you go. This is it. They wanted a 4-day work week, $300,000 a year, and 5 weeks paid vacation to start.
5 weeks paid vacation?
But did you also catch the work week?
Yeah. But the 5 weeks paid vacation is 25 days.
Yep. Well, at a 4-week, no, if it's a 4-day work week. Oh yeah, it is 25. Yeah, that's still. That's ridiculous.
That's absurd. 4-day work week? No, you can fuck off. No, unless you're working 10-hour days.
I guess I don't know.
Week, I could see. But $300,000? You're out of your freaking mind.
Yeah, I think doing the math on what these unions are asking, and this is where I think the
And here's the
unions.
thing, awesome one. Math that out a little further. If you manage to stay gainfully employed for the entire 52 weeks of a year by jumping from project to project to project, you're making $500,000. The president doesn't get $500,000 legally a year.
So this is where I again, I respect Sporking. He's a good guy. We're friends. We're going to be cool. But when a union is trying to do this, it's not just a matter of protecting your workers anymore. This isn't like saying someone, and don't get me wrong, I value the idea of making things in America. I want to manufacture things in America, but I'm sorry if you say that to manufacture a car in America is going to cost is to hire someone to do that is $300,000 plus per year to start. Guess who's going to sell a lot more cars? Korea and Japan.
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
just killing your own industry at that point, which is exactly what the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA are doing right now. Like,
yeah, vertical horizons. It's because now they can't afford California prices and living there, so they're inserting their entitlement into negotiations.
I get that a lot of these people are just like fresh young idiots out of college who have no idea how the world works. But guess what? In 90% of the places that I've worked, I could not afford the cost of living.
Yeah.
Like,
Here's a good point, though.
So you know what I did?
What's
I
that?
lived far away from where I worked, and I commuted for an hour plus to get to work because it was like, well, I could live in this area that's right next to the office that I now work at and pay $4,000 a month rent for this apartment, or I could live an hour away and pay half that for an apartment.
Here you
Which
go.
is still a lot more than I was ready to pay, but
yeah. Tina makes a point. I don't know about this one because she says, I think most people, including Sporking, think teachers, actors, and writers don't need unions. I don't know where I was not getting that because on our conversation Wednesday, he was adamant that Drew Barrymore was a scab. She's terrible. I mean, if you feel that strongly about her now crossing the picket line, it's really hard to make me see the logical step of saying, but they don't need a union anyway.
no, I don't. I'm going to defend Sporking on this one, and I am going to say he is married to the ideal of the union. Like, it has nothing to do with what?
He makes $100,000 to make salad bags. Where is this?
Nice, but like,
Yeah.
The idea of the union is what I think he's in love with. Like, he probably doesn't think that the writers or the actors or teachers need unions, but since they have one and these people are part of it, he's married to that idea of the union, and they must be loyal to the union.
We got to keep Iowa on the list. Apparently, you can make like $100,000 making salad bags.
I need to move back home, apparently.
So also one said he watched a video on Cali professionals that were homeless because of $3,000 a month rent. Jesus. I mean, that's what a mortgage is now because of the newer interest rates and higher prices. I can't imagine if that was just rent.
I don't. Well, and the thing about it is if you're living in Iowa, I mean, unless he's like in the heart of Des Moines or one of those areas, this really could cost a living. Like $100K to make salad bags. He's living high on the hog. He's doing real well for himself.
Teacher unions are where the idea of ending math came from. 2 + 2 = 5, Robert. Oh, but yeah, so I just don't think she's a scab. I think she's following the rules to bring back her show within what's allowed. Yeah. I think she's making sure the rest of the people who work on her show can feed their families, which is that one
guy did it too. What's his name?
Bill Maher is coming back.
Bill Maher, yeah, he's doing it too. So who fucking cares?
And here's the thing. When the writers went on strike last time, like 12, 13 years ago, all these shows did the same thing where they came back without WGA writers, and no one was telling them that they were the evil scabs. I think the unions aren't getting the publicity they thought they would or the support because no one wants to support entitled assholes. And so they're trying to make Drew Barrymore a villain for them to play off of. I don't know if it's a good choice to make Drew Barrymore a villain. She's one of the daytime talk show people that appeals to like the middle class moms. And the last things that people know Drew Barrymore for are all those Adam Sandler movies where she was the super nice romantic love interest. You're not turning
Yeah,
Drew Barrymore
yeah.
into the villain. You're not making the wedding singer Julia Gulia into the villain.
No, that's a tough one. I mean, she's got that quality where it's like she's just so nice and friendly and cute. I would never want to hurt her feelings.
Yeah. Bill Maher told them to F off with this strike business. He has a show to run.
No, that's basically what he said. He's like, I mean, I feel for you guys, but we've got a show to run, and this strike has gone on too long. It needs to end.
So apparently Iowa is not the land of free of low cost anymore. He's saying the home assessment's up 80,000 in a year, and that because of the COVID lockdown, they didn't lock down as long, so people started going up.
You have lived in this area that we now live in all your life, so you do not understand this, okay?
I know, yeah.
A home assessment going up 80,000 in a year in the area where he's talking about means it's probably cleared 200,000 at this point.
Hey, here's what
not
this is.
Not joking.
Smells like crap and cold winters will get him out. That's true. Here's another point that I was trying to make with Sporking, where I was talking about that people didn't have a choice about joining unions sometimes when they go to a job. And so how many of the union people would even be in the union, but are being sucked into this whole thing? Like Austin once says he was drafted into a union when he worked at the airport and he don't remember any benefits. A lot of people have to join, like part of getting a job in a certain place in a zone is that job is a union job. So you get the job, you're in the union, you're paying dues. It doesn't matter whether you like them or not. It doesn't matter whether the union is supporting causes you support or not. Specifically politics, like unions tend to go 95 to 99% in one direction for donations and such. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what their rank and file membership actually supports.
And a lot of people don't even, when you're in, you don't even get a choice. You're paying dues to the union. Like they don't even have to ask you for the dues. Like that just gets taken out of your paycheck, whether you wanted it or not. And it's unions have gotten pretty shiesty over the years. And I do not. I think in a lot of circumstances, this one in particular as well, unions have become corporatized, and they're not doing what's best for their membership. They're doing what's best for the union.
And all right. So I'm going to use the line from the movie. See, I'd say Bojan gets it.
Yeah.
From The Wedding Singer, Billy Idol gets it. The Wedding Singer was an epic movie. I love The Wedding Singer because when I worked at the theater, it was the first time a movie had done a promotion where at AMC we got to get movie T-shirts instead of the normal uniform. So for the whole weekend, I got to wear my Wedding Singer T-shirt, which I still have, instead of my at the time the AMC uniform was the vest and bow tie with the short sleeve Oxford shirt. And man, was that the ultimate way to pick up ladies when you're in high school, was wearing that. So wearing a T-shirt for a weekend was awesome. I went home. They're like, my mom was like, "Why are you washing that shirt?" And I was like, "Because I'm wearing this every day. I don't want to wear my normal uniform." You had a choice. It was that shirt or your normal uniform. So, let's see. Delau just keeps making us feel sad. He's making $350,000 in a town of 3,000 with a normal suburban home. Oh,
yeah, that's. I grew up in Galena, which is a town of 3,500, and I mean, it's in Illinois. It's right across the river, over by Dubuque, East Dubuque, that area. But like, yeah, a couple years back when I first got out of the Navy. I was looking at going back home. I ended up working up in Northern Virginia for a while, but I was looking at homes in the Northern Virginia area. And it's like, okay, 350,000, 400,000, 380, 450. And I'm like, what could I get for this price back home? And it's like, I'm looking at these tiny little like 2-bedroom townhomes with like barely 1,000 square feet and all these other things. And it's like, oh my God, these are expensive as all hell. Then I look back home and it's like, I could get like a 5-bedroom like mansion built into the side of the valley overlooking the whole town. Like, I was just like, wow. Galena's a tourist trap. It's just it's a nice looking place, but
there we go. To answer Tina's question, yes, it was effectively the usher outfit from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So from the early 1980s through, I think it was around 1999, 2000 when we, you know what, it was right before Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, we changed to what we dubbed the AMC Cruisewear look, which was they decided to model the uniforms off Disney because we had a theater in Disney, and it was a like shirt with epaulets because like a cruise ship, and the color of the epaulets would signify what level of crew you were. If you had the 3-color epaulets, which was purple, yellow, and teal, you were just a regular crew member. If it was all teal, you were a supervisor. It was it was an improvement over the bow tie and vest.
Damn, you have full military ranking structure.
Well, AMC always had a thing where you could delineate who was a supervisor and wasn't. When it was this usher outfit from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a black vest was a regular crew member and a burgundy vest was a supervisor. And then
no, awesome one. Galena is not a tropical island. It is a small mining town named for the lead, which was mined out of the hills in the area, primarily used to make bullets for the Civil War, if I remember correctly.
Oh, this is now turning into a Great Lakes area geography lesson.
Yeah, NTC. I went to NTC. I lived in Waukegan while I was there. I did electronics technician training there for about a year, and then my C school was in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then halfway through my naval career. Well, 10 years into my naval career, I was force converted to CTR and had to go down to Pensacola for a bunch of school. And that is where I saw billboards that said, "Don't hook up with syphilis," because apparently they have a real problem with that in Pensacola.
Did you also notice in Florida there was a lot of billboards for vasectomies?
Yeah.
Like I know, so most of my time driving into Florida has been driving into Orlando, and I can't help but feel like there's a correlation from the fact that you're driving down 95 going towards Disney, and there's all these billboards about come get a vasectomy. Like you don't want any more kids.
Yeah, Delu, it was about the same for me. I mean, my first real command was in Virginia, and then I ended up bouncing away from Virginia a couple of times, but I always ended up back in Virginia, and then I got out of the Navy and I kind of just stuck around. I went to Northern Virginia, but I'm still in that area.
Because if you get the skill set and the clearances from the military, Northern Virginia is a place you can get paid.
Dude, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's other places with lower cost of living, but the amount of money.
I mean, we're not talking $100K to make salad bags or anything.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, that might be worth it changing those cost of living things. When a house is probably like 200. Yeah. Awesome was in Virginia.
Then
you
Virginia
were in Virginia
went hard
twice.
blue,
yeah,
and
yes.
I went just far enough to get out of Virginia, but I'm still basically in Virginia.
And it's like a lot of blue states, and I say states in quotes. Virginia's hard blue is basically 3 counties / regions. It's
yes,
Fairfax
but I
County.
live dead center in one of those counties.
It's Fairfax County, Prince William County, and Loudoun County.
Loudoun County.
But
Loudoun
even
County
Loudoun
used to be purple, but it went blue.
No, but even Loudoun County, it's really just Ashburn and like Sterling that are the hard blue zones. Because as you and you know this, Slender, as you go further west towards other places on Route 7, Loudon becomes a lot like when you hit Percival or you hit Berryville or any of those, it becomes a lot more red, like deep red. Like people like gun stores out of houses red. And it's
you were
just
ops department. I was combat systems.
yep, and Leesburg to a certain extent. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a whole side conversation with DeLu at this point.
Yep. And we got Tina saying that she tried to get her family to move to Virginia so the boys could go to college at William and Mary, which is a state public college in Virginia and would have saved you so much money, ridiculous amounts of money on college tuition. Because I will say this, Virginia public colleges are still relatively affordable in state. It's out of state that they just get ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's the ship has sailed. I think your boys are all knee deep into college at this point. So I guess that didn't happen for you, Tina. Sorry, but the Virginia public colleges, you have so many good options. You have Virginia Tech, you have College of William and Mary, George Mason, James Madison, all sorts of good stuff. Like what's great is if you have military vets, they usually rotate through Virginia. So our entire chat has stories of doing stuff in Virginia. 25,000 per year killing. Oh,
Per
that
person. Damn.
Person, and that's the in-state rate. You should have registered them as illegals, and you would have got less money to have to pay. I believe Illinois don't they give the in-state tuition for free to illegals? So,
oh boy. All right, well, I feel like maybe it's just because I'm sick of talking about this that I'm having conversations with chat more than talking about the writer's strike. But like, yeah, the writers are assholes. The actors are assholes. Nobody likes the way this thing is going. You should have just taken the deal. You had a really good deal. You should have taken the deal. Now at this point, I'm like, you didn't. You know when you don't take the deal, and like that's when like the sniper that you didn't know about that was up in the corner like puts one through your shoulder, and then like the bad guy walks up and says, "You should have taken the deal." Like I feel like we're at that point, and I don't even feel bad for him anymore.
Exactly. So I think we can switch over. We talked about the unions kind of screwing over someone. Now we can kind of talk about a big corporation trying to screw over someone, and and that's Bill Willingham, who is the writer creator of Fables, which is a fairly popular and successful comic book series. Has just announced in the last couple of days, he put out a press release that he's giving Fables to the public domain, meaning whoever you are, whatever you want to do, you can have at it. You are free to make stories, comic books, other stuff with Fables, get paid for it, and he's basically giving it to you for free to do that. And he's doing that to say F you to DC Comics.
Interesting.
And here we go. This is, let me see if it.
Yeah, I'm actually reading on I'm reading about Fables on the Wikipedia page, and sure enough, a critical and commercial success, winning many Eisner Awards and receiving several Hugo Award nominations for Best Graphic Story. Its success led to several spin-offs and a 2013 prequel video game titled The Wolf Among Us.
Yep. So this is...
I mean, that's one way to do it, too. These people keep fucking you over. They're screwing over your content and everything else. Give it to someone who cares.
Do you want to know one of the other reasons that Bill Willingham is probably getting fucked over by DC?
Why?
He's right-wing.
Say it ain't so.
He's one of the kind of right-wing leaning guys. And so he did this under the Vertigo label, which I think Vertigo is the creator-owned label at DC Comics. So if you make a comic under Vertigo, you own the rights to it. You still like it's the same reason like Sandman, right? You've heard of Sandman, we've talked about. That one was made by Neil Gaiman. He owns the rights to the characters. Like if they get a movie made out of it, he's getting paid. And it's not a DC thing. So Bill Willingham is writing, and this press release is such an indictment of basically he's saying that DC Comics is fucking him. And
let's
because
just read it. You want me to read it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Fables press release. Subject Fables enters the public domain on the 15th of September, year of our Lord, 2023, by Bill Willingham. For immediate release, the lead. As of now, 15 September 2023, the comic book property called Fables, including all related Fables spin-offs and characters, is now in the public domain. What was once wholly owned by Bill Willingham is now owned by everyone for all time. It's done, and as most experts will tell you, once done, it cannot be undone. Takebacks are neither contemplated nor possible. Question: why did you do this? A number of reasons. I've thought this over for some time. In no particular order, they are: 1. Practicality. When I first signed my creator-owned publishing contract with DC Comics, the company was run by honest men and women of integrity who, for the most part, interpreted the details of that agreement fairly and above board. When problems inevitably came up, we worked it out, like reasonable men and women. Since then, over the span of 20 years or so, those people have left or been fired, to be replaced by a revolving door of strangers of no measurable integrity, who now choose to interpret every facet of our contract in ways that only benefit DC Comics and its owner companies. At one time, the Fables properties were in good hands, and now, by virtue of attrition and employee replacement, the Fables properties have fallen into bad hands. Since I can't afford to sue DC to force them to live up to the letter and the spirit of our longtime agreements, since even winning such a suit would take ridiculous amounts of money out of my pocket and years out of my life — I'm 67 years old and don't have the years to spare — I've decided to take a different approach and fight them in a different arena, inspired by the principles of asymmetric warfare. The one thing in our contract the DC lawyers can't contest or reinterpret to their own benefit is that I am the sole owner of the intellectual property. I can sell it or give it away to whomever I want. I chose to give it away to everyone. If I couldn't prevent Fables from falling into bad hands, at least this way I can arrange that it falls into many good hands, since I truly believe there are still more good people in the world than bad ones. I count it as a form of victory. 2. Philosophy. In the past decade or so, my thoughts on how to reform the trademark and copyright laws in this country, and others, I suppose, have undergone something of a radical transformation. The current laws are a mishmash of unethical backroom deals to keep trademarks and copyrights in the hands of large corporations who can largely afford to buy the outcomes they want. In my template for radical reform of those laws, I would like it if any IP is owned by its original creator for up to 20 years from the point of first publication, and then goes into the public domain for any and all to use. However, at any time before that 20 years span bleeds out, you, the IP owner, can sell it to another person or corporate entity who can have exclusive use of it for up to a maximum of 10 years. That's it. Then it cannot be resold. It goes into the public domain. So then, at the most, any intellectual property can be kept for exclusive use for up to about 30 years, and no longer without exception. Of course, if I'm going to believe such radical ideas, what kind of hypocrite would I be if I didn't practice them? Fables has been my baby for about 20 years now. It's time to let it go. This is my first test of this process. If it works, and I see no legal reason why it won't, look for other properties to follow in the future. Since DC or any other corporate entity doesn't actually own the property, they don't get a say in this decision. Question: what exactly has DC Comics done to provoke this? Too many things to list exhaustively, but here are some highlights. Oh, I love highlights. Throughout the year of my business relationship with DC, with Fables, and with other intellectual properties, DC has always been in violation of their agreements with me. Usually it's in smaller matters, like forgetting to seek my opinion on artists for new stories, or for covers, or formats of new collections and such. In those times when called on it, they automatically said, "Sorry, we overlooked you again." It just fell through the cracks. They used the "fell through the cracks" line so often and so reflexively that I eventually had to bar them from using it ever again. They are often late reporting royalties and often underreport said royalties, forcing me to go after them to pay the rest of what's owed. Lately, though, their practices have grown beyond these mere annoyances, prompting some sort of showdown. First, they tried to strong arm the ownership of Fables from me when Mark Doyle and Dan Didio first approached me with the idea of bringing Fables back for its 20th anniversary. Both gentlemen since fired from DC. During the contract negotiations for the new issues, their legal negotiators tried to make it a condition of the deal that the work
be done as work for hire.
The work be done as work for hire. Sometimes it gets blurry after you scroll it. It's kind of hard to read. Effectively throwing the property irrevocably into the hands of DC. When that didn't work, their excuse was, "Sorry, we didn't read your contract going into these negotiations. We thought we owned it." More recently, during talks to try to work out our many differences, DC officers admitted that their interpretation of our publishing agreement and the following media rights agreement is that they could do whatever they wanted with the property. They could change stories or characters in any way they wanted. They had no obligation whatsoever to protect the integrity and value of the IP, either from themselves or from third parties, Telltale Games, for instance, who want to radically alter the characters, setting, history, and premises of the story. I've seen the script they tried to hide from me for a couple of years. Nor did they owe me any money for licensing the Fables rights to third parties, since such a license wasn't anticipated in our original publishing agreement. Wow, they're really pushing the envelope here, aren't they?
Oh, they do like
this is normal company, for them?
It's not just normal for DC. Like Marvel, Disney does this shit too, left and right. So, yeah.
Oh, holy shit. When they capitulated on some of the points in a later conference call, promising on the phone to pay me back monies owed for licensing Fables to Telltale Games, for example, in the execution of the new agreement, they reneged on their word and offered the promised amount instead as a consulting fee, which avoided the precedent of admitting this was money owed and included a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from saying anything but nice things about Telltale or the license, and so on. There's so much more, but these, as I said, are some of the highlights. At that point, since I disagreed on all of their new interpretations of our long-standing agreements, we were in conflict. They practically dared me to sue them to enforce my rights, knowing it would be a long and debilitating process. Instead, I began to consider other ways to go. Question: are you concerned at what DC will do now? No. I gave them years to do the right thing. I tried to reason with them, but you can't reason with the unreasonable. They used these years to make soothing promises, tell lies about how dedicated they were toward working this out, and keep dragging things out as long as possible. I gave them an opportunity to renegotiate the contracts from the ground up, putting everything in unambiguous language, and they ignored that offer. I gave them the opportunity twice to simply tear up our contracts, and we would each go our separate ways. And they ignored those offers. I tried to go over their heads to deal directly with their new corporate masters and maybe find someone willing to deal in good faith, and they blocked all my attempts to do so. Try getting any officer of DC Comics to identify who they report to up the company ladder. I dare you. In any case, without giving them details, I warned them months in advance that this moment was coming. I told them what I was about to do would be both legal and ethical. Now it's happened. Note that my contracts with DC Comics are still in force. I did nothing to break them. I cannot unilaterally end them. I still can't publish Fables comics through anyone but them. I still can't authorize a Fable movie through anyone but them. Nor can I license Fables toys nor lunchboxes, nor anything else. And they still have to pay me for the books they publish. And I'm not giving up on the other money they owe. One way or another, I intend to get my 50% of the 50 or 30.
50. To get his 50%.
Okay, it's blurry again. Of the money
Yeah.
they've owed me for years for the Telltale game and other things. However, you, the new 100% owner of Fables, never signed such agreements. For better or for worse, DC and I are still locked together in this unhappy marriage, perhaps for all time. But you aren't.
Yep.
Hold on, I'm getting a sip of water.
Okay. This guy's a writer.
This is a long open letter. Yes, but it is well written. If I understand the law correctly, and be advised that copyright law is a mess, purposefully and vaguely murky, and no two lawyers, not even those specializing in copyright and trademark law, agree on anything. You have the rights to make your Fables movies and cartoons, and publish your Fables books, and manufacture your Fables toys, and do anything you want with your property, because it's your property. Mark Buckingham is free to do his version of Fables, and I dearly hope he does. Steve Leiloha is free to do his version of Fables, which I'd love to see, and so on. You don't have to get my permission, but you might get my blessing, depending upon your plans. You don't have to get DC's permission, or the permission of anyone else. You never signed the same agreements I did with DC Comics. It was my absolute joy and pleasure to bring you Fables stories, or the past for the past 20 years. I look forward to seeing what you do with it. I mean, that's a good open letter, man.
Yeah, it's his press release, and it's a fuck you, DC Comics.
A strong fuck you too.
Like it is. Like it's basically an open invitation. Go make all the money you can on this property. And in fact, I'll give you my blessing depending on what you're doing. Guess we're losing Tina. She's taking her Ambien.
Letter. I mean, clearly the guy's a good writer, because at the beginning I was like, no, man, fuck that. I would never give up my IP. Like, I will retain full creative control of anything that I make. But then I'm like, this might not be half bad way to go about it, though. If he holds on to it for 20 years and then gives it to the people, yeah, some people are going to make bad, terrible stories. But it becomes a lot harder for those people to kill your IP, to kill your characters, to ruin them for all time, like Disney did with Star Wars. Like, and we see that so often with these companies that are taking these old IPs and character assassinating the leads. Like Han Solo, character assassination. Luke Skywalker, character assassination. Indiana Jones, character assassination. Like, I don't want that to happen to my characters. I love my characters. They're cool.
I think it also gives you, I mean, as fans, right? If it's public domain and everybody's open to do it, and 25 different people come out with their versions of Fables now, you can pick and choose the one you want.
The cream will naturally rise.
Exactly. Like I'm not saying that he should do this, but somebody like Ethan Van Sciver, who already makes toys, he's already got, like, for his Cyberfrog line. If I was Ethan Van Sciver and I've already got the setup and the contacts to create action figures, I'd be going ahead and starting my first line of Fables toys. Because you can make a nice quality one, you can probably crowdfund it on Indiegogo, and then once you make your money on that crowdfund, you'll have a product line that you can just sell in your store for years. And if you make a good quality product, people will buy it. Especially fans. Like Fables is a great comic. Yeti Cast, was in the chat talking about how it is. The story is basically done. Bill Willingham wrote it every single issue, 150 issues of Fables from start to finish. It's a cohesive, coherent story. that covers the concept is that fairy tale characters have to leave their fairy tale world and seek refuge in the real world because of a enemy that had taken over their their lands, and that was the only place they had left to go. So, and that in the real world,
No,
they have
I
problems.
gotta give two people credit. I mean, I agree full stop with YetiCast. He went full Chad. It's a boss
Yep.
move. And I also agree with this follow-up. I'm gonna highlight this one. But
Yep.
we have money, you don't. What are you going to do? Is the mindset of these large companies. And it really is. Most of these companies, they know you can't afford a fucking lawyer. Like, they know you can't. Like, especially if it's a drawn out legal proceeding. But guess what? They already have lawyers on retainer. It doesn't cost them an extra dollar to start and sustain a legal battle like this because they're already paying for those lawyers. They already are.
Yep. They are, and they've got them on staff, and they know. And there's something else I think you put in there about delaying tactics that they could keep just filing motions and this and that and the other to just make this go on for years, and they will drain you of all your money.
They can make those legal proceedings last for years, and the goal isn't even to win or prove that they're right. The goal is just for you to run out of money and your lawyer to be like, I'm done.
Exactly. And he's 67, so they think he'll pass away before any of that would happen. And I love this move. I think it's because
it's a great move. This is like a 4D chess move.
Because what would happen is if Bill Willingham had passed away, whoever becomes the estate trustee for his estate, DC Comics would come to that person and offer them just, look, hey, we'll give you a like 5-10% of Fables in perpetuity. You just sell it over to us. And the heirs would probably make that deal. And then DC would own it outright.
Well, and digging back into it, and like this is where I bump the chest with fist and I say respect. But he made kind of an offhanded comment about how he did see the script that he saw the thing that they wrote that they were trying to hide from him for 2 years.
I think that was the script for Wolf Among Us 2.
Yeah. And I get the very distinct impression based on that little comment, that kind of throwaway comment there, that what's most important to him is that he doesn't like that they're ruining his story, his world, his characters, this thing he built, right? Because like the money is important, obviously. Like I made a whole lot of money off the stories I've written, but like I made a little, and I'm glad that I made the money off of it. But more so, I was just glad that I got to write the story. I told the story, and the people who read the story, a lot of them seem to really like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing to me. But if like I wrote another story about Nico and suddenly Nico stops being this elf who lived in the woods and rose to become this great hero, and instead Nico dyed his hair pink and was going by they them pronouns and everything else, I'd be like, no, don't fucking do that to Nico. Like that's not the character I made. You have killed my character.
And so I'm a big Fables fan. I enjoyed The Wolf Among Us. I thought it was a solid game. It's a Telltale game, so people who've played it know you're basically just doing quick time events, and it's a story.
Yeah,
it's an animated story,
games, but they are overrated as fuck.
Yeah. Well, I think I got it when it was a PlayStation Plus, where it was just free. So
that was one of their first big hits too. That was one of Telltale's kind of breakout games.
Yeah. So I can see where Bill Willingham. So having read the Fables comics, this was a prequel set before the first issue, and they definitely were fucking a little with the characterizations of a little bit. Now it was still in the vein of what the characters were, But I think for someone like Bill Willingham, who was very meticulous in what his story was, having other people come around and kind of fuck with the story before, because there's a lot of flashbacks in Fables where it tells the backstory leading up to the events of the first issue. And so I don't think he liked having this going on. And they murdered characters in it, and they had killers. And so I don't think he liked the idea of characters being added that he hadn't used before, like they put in Grendel and like the Little Mermaid and things like that. And he might have had plans to use those characters in different ways. And so even though I like the game, I can see why a creator not being consulted at all for that story would piss him off to this day. And then you add on top of it that he never got paid for it, that it was his creation. And DC Vertigo deals are always,
regardless of how good the game was, they clearly did him fucking dirt. And I mean, I've liked things like that before. Like, there's a lot of that with The Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
Although, from what I have read, CD Projekt Red did try to make that right with him. And he just wanted nothing to do with the games, I guess.
Yeah, as far as he was like, F games, I don't care about games. You just do what you want.
Yeah.
I think I remember even was like, if I remember the quote, he was like, you bought the license, you do whatever the hell you want with it. You're doing your thing.
Yeah. And I don't know. Don't do the guy dirty. Like, if it's his thing, he's entitled to a portion of the profits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's royalties, those things, all that stuff. Give him what he's due. No, I agree, Yeti. He did sue afterwards and got paid for the games, but they tried before the suit happened. They actually were trying to offer him something, and he just wasn't having it.
Oh,
because again, and that is, Lil Chad is also right on that. He basically just told them, I mean, I don't fucking care about games. You paid me for the license. Do what you want with it. And then, because the game was so successful, he was like, wait a minute, I didn't get nearly as big a piece of the pie as I should have. And they were like, well, yeah, because you didn't want to do that contract with us. Would you like to renegotiate the contract? Because they offered him a chance to renegotiate the contract and get more, but he tried to go for a suit first. And it's kind of a mess. But I don't think they did him dirty. I think he just didn't give a shit about the game and didn't realize how popular it was going to be.
I just when I saw this press release as a fan of this content. Oh, we got another voice joining in.
Hey,
Yeti.
Yeah, Slender was right about all that stuff. Like they went out of their way to make the guy happy for.
Yeah, they tried hard to make it right.
Oh, they really, really tried, and they gave him a bunch of different offers, and he was just like, "Oh, just give me straight cash up front, because these things are never going to take off. Games suck." And then it turns into a $1 billion franchise, and I guess Polish law says that you can sue if you didn't get the full potential of whatever the deal was at the time. It's very weird. So he was able to go back and get all that money, even though they went out of their way to like try to make it right, but he just didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if he's going to try to sue Netflix about how they, talking about not getting full potential based on what they did.
Oh my god, baby. Dude! Don't.
I think that might be going
I'm
the
starting
wrong
to move
way.
toward that end stream button because you got me thinking about The Witcher Blood Origin again.
No, what I'm just wondering is, Slender, are you going to now look? I've got the entire Fables collection. You could read, get caught up, and then maybe jump right in, do some public domain work.
I'm considering it because
Dude,
I mean,
I want to do that now.
the letter
is
inspires
good.
me, that's for sure, and I could very easily get caught up on it, put together a story framework, and like you could tell me what I need to work on because you have that comic background. So
I
we could
would
definitely do something
love
with it.
I would love to check Comixology and see if Fables is jumping to the top of like the list of people like going back and reading it so they can be caught up, ready to public domain their own work.
I mean, probably. It would be a good move.
What's interesting for Fables is he was doing, this is a story about fairy tale characters. So all of the fairy tale characters he used were public domain for him to use. And now he's turning around and allowing you to use the characterizations he's come up with as public domain. So if someone at DC tried to sue you for making the content based on Fables, there's a whole lot of public domain defenses involved because you're talking about Snow White. You're talking about the Big Bad Wolf. You're talking about Briar Rose.
Yeah. How many shows kind of did that? They went back.
Oh, there were a bunch. My wife was watching one at one point, which basically sounds exactly like this.
Oh, no, Slender. Let me tell you why Bill Willingham is still pissed off. So in the late 90s, or right around 2000s, early 2000s, late 90s, when Fables started and got real and was really popular, he actually went and pitched to NBC and ABC a Fables TV show. And both of them were like, no, your stories, they're not for us. ABC turned around and like the next show season did the Once Upon a Time show, which is definitely lifted from Fables.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now. That is 100%.
Yep, just went and looked it up. Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, and then the NBC turned around and did Grimm not long after that.
No, yeah, Grimm's a little weird.
Which is a little weirder, but there's definitely some overtones to Fables to that too.
Yeah, at least they tried to change it, like so it's a different kind of world. But I mean,
but Once Upon a Time was Disney. Disney people at ABC were like, "Fuck it, we've got our own Disney characters. We'll just do it with them, and we can tell Bill Willingham to pound sand." And that was Once Upon a Time is following the storyline of Fables and just replacing the Disney versions of those characters with, in lieu of the Fables versions.
Well, and Disney will be the first to tell you that they own all this fucking folklore. Like they own Cinderella, they own Snow White.
They don't. Like
Disney tried to do you remember when Disney tried to
they'll come after you though.
Like you use the name Thor, we own Thor, and it's like, fucker, that's a Norse mythology name that's been around way before you.
They did that too.
And so this is the mindset of Bill Willingham, where he created a very good, very popular book, and
extremely well written.
And at every turn, people were fucking him over to take his intellectual property. So if you're Bill Willingham at this point, you are probably like, fuck it, public domain, because I'm already getting screwed. Let other people make money off of this.
I did love Supernatural. Supernatural was a lot of fun.
Up until a certain season.
Well, the
problem 27th season
on a couple of at a couple different points throughout the story, they kind of blew their wad, and then it was like, okay, the show's over. Like they just beat the devil.
Well, that's what we got to raise the game. We got to beat God.
Now we're gonna beat God, and then it's like, but we're still so successful. We got to do more. What if God has a sister? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
See, I gave up at that. I think as soon as I always hit like the Leviathans, I'm like, oh, okay, this is not what the show was before, because it was so cool. First three seasons
first 3 seasons were on point.
And then the first 3 seasons were kind of, I hesitate to use the word grounded, but they were going after one specific like low level demon at the time.
Yeah. The angels entered, it went. It fell apart.
By the end of it, like, yes, the power creep was there, but they were making jokes out of it in the last couple of seasons. Like, wait, you died? Yeah, I've died twice. It's not that big a deal. Like,
I will say, from the later seasons, the Scooby-Doo episode is fantastic.
It is. That's
when
a
they
good
get
episode.
sent. Yeti, did you see that one from the late seasons?
I don't know if I have.
They get sent into Scooby Doo, and was it which one? All right, so Sam is was the gruffer one, right? Sam and Dean, yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Sam's the strong male protagonist who likes the girls, and Dean is kind of the he's the Sigma male. He's the edgy, edgy.
Yeah, so
emo kid.
Sam is like, don't fuck with Scooby Doo. Like, he's like, don't mess with it. And Dean's like, we've got to figure this out. And he's like, stop fucking with Scooby Doo.
I've never heard anyone describe
the
Dean
wife
that
is
way.
shaking her head. Do I have him backwards again?
Sam tall, Dean short.
Yeah, like I've
Sam
never heard
tall, Dean short. Yeah, okay, yeah. Dean's the alpha.
Okay,
like how the fuck is Dean like this beta bitch?
All right, whichever one is the shorter blonde haired guy who was in Smallville, which is how I remember him, is the one who was like loved Scooby Doo and was like, and then at the same time was like hitting on Daphne the entire time, which was hilarious.
Okay, hear me out. I think he might make a good Batman.
I could see. I liked him better as an idea, like when he did Red Hood, because he did the voice of him.
Yeah, when they said that he might be Batman, I was like, yeah, you can pull off Batman.
I saw somebody do like a mock-up of like, oh, okay, and then his role on The Boys, like he's a good actor, yeah. And like he's definitely got the stoicism and look down. Like he could pull it off.
So did you watch the Red Hood animated movie they did?
Yeah, it was really fucking good.
Yeah, he did the voice of Red Hood in that.
Yes, he did.
Which is Jason
That's why
Todd.
I thought he could do Batman. I was like, well, he'd be a good Red Hood too, honestly.
Yeah, but I think that's he's got more. Batman is damaged, but Red Hood / Jason Todd is like fucked. Like he's had like that's a guy who's even
well, he's
worse
gone
off.
Full Punisher. So.
Well, yeah, and that because he was killed, he was murdered and brought back by a Lazarus pit.
Yeah.
So he's insane to a certain degree. And now they've just made him kind of a Bat Family Punisher. So it's a little.
Yeah, he's getting a little old now. I'll agree with that.
I to be honest, like I stopped paying attention once it starts branching off like 12 different times of new sidekicks and like okay, I don't care. There's Batman, Robin, and then maybe Nightwing, and I just don't care about any of the others because it's like
there's only been 4 Robins.
Yeah,
officially.
Only 4? Only 4?
It makes sense. I'll explain it right now. First one's Dick Grayson. He becomes Nightwing. You're good.
Oh, I want to end the stream so bad while you're trying to do this.
No, because I know.
I'm hovering over the button.
Don't do it. Don't do it, because I'm going to talk about Jason Todd, who's Red Hood. Do you know how he got killed, Slender? Have I ever told you this one?
I thought Joker killed Jason Todd.
Yeah, but do you know how they decided to kill him?
I thought he got beat to death with a lead pipe.
No, DC Comics put like a phone, 2 800 numbers in the back of the comic books for Jason Todd to live or die. One for and they counted
that.
And they counted the votes and they killed his ass because the fans actually paid to call 800 numbers to kill him off.
Oh, little Chad. The chat is baiting me right now.
Oh no.
One person.
Oh, I want to push it.
After Jason,
tell me about the other 3 Robins.
There's only other 2 now. Jason Todd's dead.
Okay.
So Batman has no Robin for a few years, and then he gets Tim Drake, who's actually the most detective-y Robin there is. He's a good one. And then the newest Robin, the current Robin, is Damian Wayne, who's his son with Talia al Ghul.
Yeah, I watched the Damian Wayne one too, where like Damian came back to live with Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he
was.
You can't kill them, and he's like, "Why not? They're bad guys. That's what we do. We kill the bad guys."
Yeah, because Damian's been trained by the League of Assassins his whole life before getting with Batman to be a assassin. Yeah. He kills people, The
that one was pretty good too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those little animated movies for
dude.
Batman have been really good.
No, like that is one thing DC has done really well, and I don't know who runs that division or what, but it's like every single animated one is so on point and so good. Like the anime, except the recent anime, like they went digital or 3D, and I can't watch it. It looks
they
like
kind
trash.
of did they did a culmination movie where it was like the apocalypse storyline, where there's about 20 DC animated movies starting with the Damian Wayne Batman ones all the way through like him and Teen Titans, him and Batman and Superman doing stuff, and they all tie together going through into a apocalypse storyline, and then they reset the DC animated movies to just being standalone ones, and it's not as good. It was better when it was kind of interconnected. I'll tell you what, another one, because they started with the Flashpoint movie. They did a DC animated Flashpoint, and that one, if you didn't like the regular Flash movie, I don't blame you, whatever. Go watch the animated one. That one is fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're all those DC animated ones are just awesome, and they'll do different takes. Like there's like Batman, but is Shogun or in Japan, and then in London, like going after Jack the Ripper type of thing.
I think that one was that one Batman by Gaslight? I think
by Gaslight. That's it. Yeah.
There was and then there was they did Red Sun, which was the story of Superman's rocket had crashed in the Soviet Union, which is interesting and pretty well done. So DC animated movies are great. The Damian Wayne characterization was really well done and really helped sell Damian Wayne.
And the Mortal Kombat ones, holy shit, those are so good.
Well,
those were kind of cool and interesting. I liked them.
Oh god, like that is what the first movie should be. Any a Scorpion's Revenge. Oh my god, like the Mortal Kombat movie did rip off a lot of that story, and didn't include the end part, which is where it all ties together so well. Now, the very last one they did was you could give or take it, like it is okay, but man, those first couple Mortal Kombat ones just amazing.
Yeah, and you know it's one that's actually really good that people say Superman. It's Batman and the Ninja Turtles. Sounds weird, right? Like why would they? It's really dark. It's like actually R-rated. Like you got Ninja Turtles killing people and things. It's like what is going on?
The way that they're originally,
it was like the it was like the Eastman, and Laird Ninja Turtles from the 80s, like coming in, Last Ronin level Ninja Turtles, which it's fun stuff. So DC animated movies good. I definitely think we need to work on a Fables public domain project now. I
God,
want to do this.
I'd be so
hey guys.
Yeah.
I pushed the button.
Oh.
Oh.